Imagine a political dispute so intense that the losing side decides the absolute best solution is to just fire the entire Supreme Court.
I mean, it sounds exactly like a plot from some crazy political thriller.
Right.
Right. But it is a very real situation unfolding right in front of us.
Yeah, we are jumping right into a massive crisis playing out in Virginia today. And, well, the stakes really could not be higher. Let's do a rapid fire breakdown of exactly what is happening here.
Let's do it.
So the state Supreme Court just struck down a massive Democratic congressional redistricting map, and they did it in a super tight 4-3 decision.
Right. Highly contested.
Exactly. And in response to that ruling, Democratic lawmakers floated a plan to use this wild constitutional loophole to lower the mandatory judicial retirement age from 73 down to 54.
Which is an incredibly specific number.
It is, and why 54? Because that is the exact age of the youngest justice in the conservative majority that just ruled against them.
Oh, wow. So it's a totally targeted strike.
Yeah, this maneuver would instantly force that conservative majority off the bench. It would basically allow the legislature to pack the court with sympathetic judges and then ram that new map through before the August 4 primary election.
It is just a staggering escalation. I mean, we were watching a pretty routine legal disagreement instantly morph into a full-blown institutional purge.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we are looking at a stack of incredibly polarized sources. We've got these fiery progressive strategy memos from newsletters like the Down Ballot.
Very aggressive rhetoric in there.
Yeah, extremely. And then we have conservative legal takedowns from the Volokh conspiracy. We also pulled straight news reports covering the daily fallout. And we even have a dry but surprisingly vital Judicial Council report from 2008.
That 2008 report really grounds the whole discussion, actually.
It really does. Now, because these sources contain highly charged political rhetoric from both left-wing and right-wing viewpoints, I need to make something crystal clear to you, the listener. Our goal in this deep dive is not to take a side in this political warfare.
Right. We aren't endorsing any viewpoint here.
Exactly. We are just here to impartially dissect the mechanics of what these sources are arguing. We want to figure out how a basic debate over judicial retirement transformed into this brutal assault on the separation of powers.
And I think that is the crucial lens to view this through. You know, the rhetoric from both sides is at an absolute boiling point.
Yeah.
But if we look past all the anger, we can see the actual levers of government being pulled.
Yeah.
To really grasp the shockwaves of this proposal, we have to look at the spark that lit the powder keg. We have to look at the ruling itself.
Right. Because before we talk about how politicians want to, fire all the judges, we have to understand the specific ruling that made them so angry in the first place.
The catalyst.
Yeah. So the Virginia Supreme Court issued a 4-3 decision. It was written by Justice D. Arthur Kelsey, and that decision totally invalidated the new congressional district maps.
Yeah.
And the political stakes of this map, they are astronomical.
Astronomical is exactly the right word. Look, the proposed map would have heavily favored Democrats. It essentially guaranteed them 10 of Virginia's 11 congressional districts.
10 out of 11, that's huge.
Right. And it was precision engineered to target 4 specific Republican incumbents. We are talking about Rob Whitman, Jen Kiggins, John McGuire, and Ben Klein.
Okay, so they were definitely in the crosshairs.
Absolutely. If this map survived, it would have fundamentally altered the balance of power in Washington. It was a massive power play.
But the interesting thing is the court did not rule on gerrymandering. They didn't look at the map and say, this is too partisan or this violates fairness.
No, not at all.
The entire ruling turned on the definition of a single 2-word phrase, which is intervening election. Let's break down why that matters.
It's all about the procedural timeline.
Exactly. The state constitution demands a specific process for passing constitutional amendments. You need a legislative vote, then you need an election to happen, and then you need a second legislative vote.
The idea is to give voters a chance to weigh in, right? Maybe potentially elect new representatives before the state finalizes a massive change.
Right. It's a built-in pause. The Constitution requires a clear chronological sequence: a vote, an election, a vote. But the court ruled that the timeline got hopelessly tangled up.
Because of early voting.
Exactly. Virginia law now allows 45 days of early voting, and because of that early voting window, the election was technically already underway when the legislature cast their first vote. The timelines overlapped.
And according to the conservative majority on the court, that overlap violated the strict, literal requirements of the Constitution.
It is like Well, think of it like scoring the game-winning touchdown, but the refs call it back. Not because anyone cheated and not because the play was poorly designed, but just because the play clock had not officially started.
Right, you executed the play perfectly, but the timing technically broke the rule book. And what's fascinating here is how this incredibly narrow procedural ruling completely upended a massive national political strategy.
It really threw a wrench in the gears.
A huge one. The court ignored the political outcome entirely. They looked purely at the strict mechanics of early voting. And by strictly adhering to the calendar, they erased a map that took immense political capital, time, and money to build.
So the map gets tossed out. The political engineers are obviously furious, but you mentioned the court ignored the political outcome to strictly follow the rules. And that strict, almost boring adherence to the rules, it didn't happen by accident, did it?
No, it's the result of decades of intentional design.
Right. And that design is perfectly captured in that incredibly dry, yet fascinating 2008 Judicial Council report we found in our sources.
Oh man, that report feels like an artifact from a lost civilization at this point.
It really does.
You know, institutions are often invisible until they break. When an institution functions properly, it is boring. And in 2008, the state treated the justice system like a complex machine that just required quiet, steady maintenance.
Yeah, the entire focus of the state was just on modernizing justice through routine administrative reforms. For example, the report details these massive magistrate reforms.
Very granular stuff.
Super granular. They decided new magistrates needed to hold a bachelor's degree. They moved supervisory authority directly to the executive secretary just to streamline operations.
And didn't they extend the probationary periods too?
Yes. They extended probationary periods for new hires to 9 months just to make sure they got proper training. It is the absolute definition of mundane bureaucracy.
But see, that mundane bureaucracy built a resilient system.
Right.
They also instituted comprehensive judicial performance evaluation.
Right, the JPEs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Attorneys who appeared before judges actually filled out detailed surveys about the judge's performance. And they got a massive 78% response rate on those surveys, which is statistically incredible.
That is a huge response rate.
And then retired judges acting as facilitators used that survey data to mentor sitting judges and help them improve their courtroom skills. It was a culture built entirely on stability, peer review, and gradual improvement.
And here is the absolute most crucial detail buried in that 2008 report. Back then, the Judicial Council actively proposed increasing the mandatory retirement age from 70 to 75.
They wanted them to stay longer.
Right. Their logic was simple. They wanted to retain experienced jurists. They valued keeping older, seasoned judges on the bench because they held all the institutional knowledge.
The contrast is jarring, honestly. You look at the calm administrative tone of 2008, where the ultimate goal is preserving institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
Then you look at the aggressive tactics being proposed in 2026, where the goal is just brute force political warfare. This shift from treating the court as a respected independent institution to treating it as a political obstacle to be demolished is profound.
So what does this all mean? Let's play devil's advocate for a second here. Virginia judges only serve 12-year terms. They do not get lifetime appointments like federal judges do.
Right. They're appointed by the legislature.
Exactly. They get appointed and reappointed by the politicians in the legislature. So if you build a system where politicians hire judges every 12 years, aren't they inherently just politicians in robes anyway? Can you really be surprised when politicians decide to fire them?
I mean, that is a very common criticism of state court systems. If you want a completely apolitical court, you give them life tenure, shielding them from the political winds.
Right, like the U.S. Supreme Court.
Precisely. By giving the legislature the power to appoint judges every 12 years, Virginia injects politics into the system by design. However, historical norms kept the system balanced.
Oh, so?
Well, for decades, reappointment was essentially standard practice unless a judge committed a serious ethical violation. Using the underlying structure of the court to execute a targeted partisan firing represents a massive leap away from those historical norms.
It's an escalation.
A huge one. It crosses a line from basic political influence to total political domination of the judicial branch.
Which brings us to the actual mechanism they want to use to cross that line. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about that 54-year-old loophole.
Right, the tactical nuke of this whole situation.
Yes. So the Virginia Constitution grants the General Assembly, the state legislature, unlimited authority to set the mandatory retirement age for judges. Current state law sets that age at 73.
But the extreme strategy floated by some lawmakers and reportedly even discussed with U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries uses a sneaky procedural trick to bypass the normal rules.
They want to pass a budget bill.
Exactly.
Now, you might be asking, why use a budget bill instead of just passing a regular law? Normal laws take effect on July 1st, giving people and institutions time to adjust. But a budget bill is tied to the state's wallet.
It's immediate.
Right. It takes effect the exact moment the governor signs it. So by burying a new retirement age in a budget bill, they are weaponizing the state's checkbook to instantly bypass the normal legislative calendar. A budget bill drops like a hammer.
And the specific plan is to attach a provision to that budget bill, lowering the retirement age to exactly 54.
Because Justice Stephen McCullough, who voted with the conservative majority to strike down the map, is exactly 54 years old.
It is surgically precise. If they pass this budget, it instantly purges the court's conservative majority without a single trial or hearing.
They don't even have to debate it.
No. And then the legislature can immediately install reliable partisan lawyers to the empty seats, demand a rehearing of the redistricting case, and get their preferred map approved.
The rhetoric around this specific plan from our sources is incredibly intense. Right-wing legal scholars describe this maneuver not just as constitutional hardball, but as murder ball.
Murder ball. Wow.
Yeah, they call it a gut and pack scheme. One scholar used a really vivid metaphor to explain the severity of it. They said if a rogue court acts like a dog wagging its tail, a normal political response might be to try and trim the tail.
Sure, normal checks and balances.
Right, but this plan does not trim the tail. This plan decides to just shoot the dog, throw it out, and buy a new, politically modified puppy.
That is a dark metaphor, but
Right.
honestly, it captures the severity. The danger of this murder ball tactic goes far beyond a single congressional map. Every state constitution has a formal impeachment process for a reason.
Right, there's a protocol.
Exactly. If a judge commits malfeasance, takes a bribe, or breaks the law, you hold a public trial. You present evidence. But using an arbitrary retirement age to bypass that formal impeachment process breeds a court of reliable, robotic justices.
Because everyone is terrified.
Yes. It sends a chilling message to every single judge in the state. Rule our way, or we will change your retirement age to 35 tomorrow morning and fire you before lunch.
Which brings us directly to Justice Arthur Kelsey. He is 64 years old. He is the justice who actually wrote the 4-3 decision striking down the map.
The author of the opinion.
Yes, and crucially, his current 12-year term is expiring. He is up for reappointment by the Democratic-controlled General Assembly this coming January.
Oh, the timing is unbelievable. Legal observers noted that Justice Kelsey displayed rare judicial courage here. I mean, he ruled strictly on his interpretation of the law, knowing full well his ruling would infuriate the exact politicians who hold his career in their hands.
He knew what was coming.
He had to. Legal experts from across the spectrum said he effectively signed his own judicial death warrant. He could have easily saved his job and secured another 12-year term by simply voting the other way. Instead, he chose the law over his own employment.
It's a stark contrast to the political maneuvering we are seeing. But a plan this aggressive, threatening the careers of Supreme Court justices, it does not just happen in a vacuum. It immediately caused a political civil war and forced state leaders to publicly choose sides.
And the responses from those leaders were immediate, highly polarized, and honestly, very revealing about the current state of American politics.
Yeah, let's look at Democratic Governor Abigail Spanberger. She was asked directly by reporters if she supported the plan to replace the justices, and she issued an unequivocal one-word answer: no.
Just a flat no.
Yeah, she completely shut the idea down, signaling she would not sign a budget bill containing that provision.
But on the other hand, you have lawmakers like Democratic Representative Suha Subramaniam defending these extreme measures. He argued that lawmakers need a strong stomach right now.
A strong stomach to fire judges.
Right. His logic is rooted in national retaliation. He pointed out that Republicans in other states are actively ignoring courts and state constitutions to gerrymander their own maps. Therefore, he argues, his side needs to fight fire with fire and act just as aggressively in Virginia, even if it means breaking institutional norms.
It's a race to the bottom. Meanwhile, Attorney General Jay Jones decided to take a totally different route. Instead of supporting a legislative purge to fire the judges, he filed an emergency stay with the United States Supreme Court.
So he's taking the traditional legal path.
Exactly. He argued that the state court misread federal law regarding the definition of an election. He is trying to fight the legal battle the traditional way by appealing to a higher court instead of just rewriting the rules.
And what is truly wild about all of this maneuvering is that there is actually historical precedent for this exact type of institutional purge in Virginia.
Wait, really? This has happened before?
Yes, this isn't just theory. Back in 1883, a massive political coalition called the Readjuster Party gained power. They wanted to break the grip of the old conservative elites.
Okay.
And when they won the legislature, they didn't just pass new laws. They looked at the state Supreme Court, realized it was full of their political enemies, and literally fired the entire bench.
It just wiped the slate clean.
They replaced every single justice with loyalists.
That is insane.
But here's the critical lesson of history. 12 years later, in 1895, conservative Democrats clawed their way back into power. And the very first thing they did was use the exact same weapon.
Of course they did.
They fired all the readjuster judges and packed the court right back. It proves that once you break the glass on judicial purges, it becomes a weapon both sides will use against each other forever.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, looking at the raw political math makes this current standoff even more staggering. We know the Democrats designed this map to win 10 out of the 11 districts.
Right.
But political analysts point out that under the old existing maps, Democrats might actually win the 1st and 2nd districts anyway, just by running strong campaigns.
Yes. When you run the numbers, this massive fight, this
Yeah.
willingness to dissolve a co-equal branch of government, it might actually only impact 1 or 2 congressional seats.
That's it.
Yeah, take the 6th district, for example. It is heavily Republican territory, but Democrats have recruited a very well-funded challenger in Beth Macy. They want that seat badly.
So let's get this straight. They are threatening to blow up the entire state Supreme Court over a tiny margin. They literally want to break the justice system to maybe grab 1 extra seat in the United States Congress.
It's wild.
It shows you exactly how high the political temperature is right now. Every single congressional seat is being treated like a matter of life and death.
And this raises a really important question. When political parties begin to treat the courts not as neutral umpires calling balls and strikes, but as players on the opposing team to be eliminated, the whole structure of government starts to wobble.
It totally destabilizes everything.
You simply cannot maintain a stable society if the fundamental rules of the game change every single time control of the legislature flips.
Which brings this entire story right back to you, listening right now. We all walk around assuming the courts in our states are permanent fixtures of democracy.
We take them for granted.
We do. We assume the rules governing our lives are carved in stone. But this deep dive shows that structural loopholes exist everywhere. If a quirk in the law allows a budget bill to instantly fire a judge, those loopholes can turn the justice system upside down overnight.
In the blink of an eye.
Yeah. The institutions that govern your daily life, the courts that decide your disputes, they are much more fragile than they appear on the surface.
I will leave you with a final thought to ponder as you think about how your own state operates. If a state constitution allows a partisan legislature to completely rewrite the rules of the judiciary whenever they lose a big case, does an independent state court actually exist?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Or is justice always just one single vote away from being dissolved entirely?
Definitely something to think about next time you walk past a courthouse in your own town. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking past the easy headlines, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.